Welcome to Calm Sleepy Tales. Thank you for joining me for tonight's story, The Whispering Pages of Widdersham, a tale from the second chapter Bookshop, run by the soft-spoken and ageless Miss Thorne. The second-hand bookstore is rumoured to contain one book that changes its content based on the reader's thoughts. No one admits to finding it, but many believe they already have. Miss Thorne collects bookmarks like others collect stamps. Customers often find one tucked inside their purchases, often strangely appropriate to their lives. First, let's begin by letting go of the day and enjoy this moment of stillness. Find a comfortable position, let your head rest, and close your eyes. Take a slow, deep breath in and gently exhale. With each breath, imagine the air around you becoming softer, warmer, more peaceful. As you breathe, feel the tension in your jaw, your forehead, and your back begin to melt away. Let your hands rest. Let your feet soften. Feel your body begin to relax. Your shoulders, your arms, your legs, slowly becoming heavier, as if they're sinking gently into the bed beneath you. Imagine the worries of the day slowly dissolving, like mist in the morning sunlight, drifting away, leaving only peace behind. You are safe. You are warm. You are exactly where you need to be. Let yourself surrender to this comfort. And when you're ready, we'll begin tonight's story. There is a bookstore in Widdersham that doesn't appear on most maps. Some say it finds you only when you need it most. Its name, barely visible in gilt letters above the misted windows, reads, "The Second Chapter." If you open its weathered door, which sighs like an old friend, you'll find the scent of time, parchment, and quiet magic. And always, behind the desk that looks carved from driftwood and forgotten stories, sits Miss Thorne. A morning visitor, the girl with the mismatched shoes. The bell over the door jingled, a sound more like wind chimes than metal, and in stepped a young girl with one red boot and one sparkly trainer. Her name was Martha Butterley, aged 7 and a bit, and she had come seeking a book on dragons or possibly hedgehogs who wore hats. She hadn't quite decided. Miss Thorne looked up from her desk, her grey braid trailing down one shoulder, and said gently, "Up the third row, past the leaning atlas, and just before the Encyclopedia of Edible Clouds, you'll find something with scales and spectacles." Martha blinked. "You mean But Miss Thorne had already returned to polishing a magnifying glass that smelled faintly of lilac and nostalgia while humming a tune. 10 minutes later, Martha returned, cradling a dusty, jewel-toned book titled Sir Percival Pinecone and the Dragon Who Forgot He Was a Dragon. A green silk bookmark dangled from its pages. Inside was written, "For those who feel a bit different on the outside, may you remember who you are, roaring or not." Martha left the shop beaming. Her shoes were still mismatched, but now she carried the beginning of a roaring story with her. An afternoon visitor, the retired cartographer. Later that day, Mr. Alwin Bott, Widdersham's retired cartographer, pushed open the door with a grunt and a puff of pipe smoke. He visited every Thursday, though never admitted he was lonely. He claimed he came only for books with maps, but Miss Thorne always handed him titles like The Geography of Lost Promises or Where the Heart Goes When It Gets Misplaced. Today she greeted him with, "Third shelf from the fireplace, just behind the ornithological memoir that hums if you listen closely." He raised a bushy eyebrow. "That's not very precise, Miss Thorne." "It's precisely what you need," she replied. The book he found, bound in cracked navy leather, was called The World Inside the Compass. Its maps were incomplete, but changed slightly each time he turned the page. He left the store, muttering something about cartographic nonsense, but Miss Thorne noticed he walked straighter than usual, his steps a touch less heavy on the old floorboards. Dusk visitors were the couple who forgot why they came. As the sun dipped low, casting amber shadows over the spines, in stepped a middle-aged couple, Nora and Tom Wickleby, both looking vaguely apologetic, as if they'd interrupted something delicate. They whispered about looking for a gardening book, or perhaps a novel about someone baking in a lighthouse, but neither seemed entirely sure. Miss Thorne studied their footsteps. After a pause, she said, "Third alcove, left of the crooked lamp, near the novel that smells like rosemary." They returned with a thin book neither remembered selecting. How to Listen When the Garden Doesn't Speak. Tucked inside was a pressed flower, forget-me-not of course, and a quote on the bookmark that read, "Some roots tangle, some bloom late, and some need rain before they sing." They bought the book in silence, holding hands as they walked out. Miss Thorne smiled as the door whispered closed behind them. The whisper that wasn't catalogued. As twilight painted Widdersham in lavender and silver, the bookshop settled into its softest hush. It was then, when the candlelight flickered and the spiral staircase creaked of its own accord, that the door opened again. A young man with ink-stained sleeves and a violin case stepped inside. Nico Delmere, a musician of some talent and much uncertainty, who hadn't planned to stop at all. Miss Thorne looked up. He didn't speak. She didn't need him to. "It's on the shelf near the broken clock," she said quietly, "the one that ticks backwards at regret." The book was bound in grey velvet and bore no title. Nico opened it and found it blank until he touched the page. Then, slowly, words appeared, mirroring his thoughts, his questions, his unfinished songs. He looked to Miss Thorne. "What is this?" She simply said, "It's yours. Just don't stop writing in it." As he left, the old staircase above gave a low sigh, and somewhere in the unseen upper floor, a soft violin note echoed, just once, then was gone. Night time. A candle lit with laughter. Miss Thorne, alone now, wandered the rows with a duster in hand, humming to the spines. One book wiggled on its shelf. She tapped it gently, and it stilled. From her pocket, she withdrew a small bundle of bookmarks, tonight's collection. She slipped one into a book titled The Collected Fables of Animals Who Were People Once, and another into The Moon's Favourite Lies. Then she lit a single candle, as she always did when closing, and laughed softly. It sounded like a flame catching the wick. Warm, sudden, bright. And behind her, on the spiral stairs, a book no one had ever seen before shifted slightly on its own. The second chapter remains just where it's always been, at the edge of Widdersham's memory and the start of your next page. If you ever find yourself a little lost, listen to your footsteps. Miss Thorne is waiting.